You did it this morning. You'll do it again tonight. Right now, as you read this, there's a voice in your head reading these words back to you. That voice never shuts up. It narrates your choices at the grocery store. It rehearses conversations that haven't happened yet. It replays arguments from 3 years ago and writes better comebacks. When you're alone in your car, sometimes it escapes. You talk to yourself out loud, and the moment you realize you're doing it, you feel a little insane. But you're not. Talking to yourself isn't a bug in your psychology. It's not a quirk or a flaw or something that only weird people do when no one's watching. It's one of the most sophisticated cognitive tools your species ever developed. And it didn't start in your head. It started out loud, tens of thousands of years ago, when your ancestors had no choice but to think with their mouths. Your brain doesn't think in silence. It thinks in language. And language was never meant to be quiet. For most of human history, thinking happened externally. You spoke your thoughts because there was no other way to organize them. You didn't have written lists, calendars, or reminder apps. If you needed to remember which plants were poisonous or where you left your tools, you said it, out loud, to yourself, sometimes to others. Your mouth was your memory. Your voice was your hard drive. Psychologist Lev Vygotsky spent years studying how children learn to think. He noticed something strange. Young kids narrate everything they do. They don't whisper, they announce. A 4-year-old building a block tower doesn't build in silence. She says, "This one goes here. Now the red one. Oops, it fell. Try again." She's not talking to you. She's talking to herself. And she's doing it because that's how she learns to control her own behavior. Vygotsky called it private speech. And he realized it wasn't just a phase kids grow out of. It's a phase they grow inward. As you get older, that external voice doesn't disappear. It goes underground. It becomes the voice in your head. The same voice that narrates your block tower at age 4 becomes the voice that navigates your email inbox at 34. But it's still the same process. You're still talking to yourself. You've just learned to do it quietly. And when the task gets hard enough, that voice comes back out. In 2011, psychologists Gary Lupian and ran an experiment. They asked people to find objects in a crowded room. Sometimes the participants stayed silent. Sometimes they were told to say the object's name out loud while searching. The result? Saying the name out loud made people faster, not by a little, by a lot. Speaking activated a more precise mental image. It sharpened attention. It turned a vague idea into a concrete target. Your voice doesn't just express what you're thinking, it shapes what you're thinking. When you talk to yourself, you're not just reporting your thoughts, you're creating them. You're turning the blur of neural activity into something linear, something you can examine. The act of putting a thought into words forces your brain to commit, to choose, to decide what you actually mean. That's why you talk yourself through hard decisions. That's why athletes mutter to themselves before a free throw, and why surgeons narrate their own hands during a procedure. The voice isn't a distraction. It's a tool. It's the difference between thinking about something and thinking through something. But here's where it gets stranger. Your brain doesn't just hear your voice when you talk to yourself. It responds to it. It listens. Psychologist Ethan Kross studies what he calls self-talk, the specific words you use when you speak to yourself. And he's found that one tiny shift in language changes everything. If you talk to yourself in the first person, "I need to calm down," your brain hears it as a complaint. It's emotional, it's reactive, it rarely helps. But if you talk to yourself in the second or third person, "You need to calm down," or "He needs to calm down," something shifts. Your brain hears it as advice, as coaching. Suddenly there's distance, perspective, control. Kross ran studies where people had to give stressful public speeches. The ones who prepared using second-person self-talk performed better. They felt less anxious. They recovered faster. It wasn't motivation. It wasn't confidence. It was grammar. The simple act of saying "you" instead of "I" turned inner chaos into outer guidance. Because when you say "you," you're not spiraling. You're observing. You've stepped outside your own skull and become your own coach. That's what your ancestors were doing when they talked to themselves around the fire. They weren't going crazy. They were staying sane. They were using their voice to organize a world.